Welcome to NFL Nexus. You know, in the crazy chess match of building an NFL roster, some moves are flashy and obvious, but others are pure genius hiding in plain sight. And today, we are diving deep into the Minnesota Vikings off-season strategy, because it is honestly one of the most fascinating and calculated plans in the entire league right now. They're basically running a two-pronged attack. One move is a massive, long-term investment in a homegrown star, and the other is a super low-risk, super high-reward gamble on a reclamation project. Now, on the surface, those moves look like total opposites, right? But stick with me, because by the end of this breakdown, you're going to see exactly how they fit together perfectly to build a team that can compete not just next season, but for 2026 and beyond. This quote, right here from the Vikings front office, this is everything. It's the Rosetta Stone that unlocks their entire strategy. Draft, develop, retain our core, and supplement in free agency. Look, with the salary cap exploding and players moving all the time, you can't just go out and buy a Super Bowl ring anymore. It doesn't work that way. You have to be smart, you have to be disciplined, and you need a clear vision. This philosophy is that vision. It's really two parts. First, you build a solid foundation with players you know, guys you trust, guys who are part of your culture. Then, you go out and you surgically fill in the gaps with outside talent. And today, we're going to look at two huge, recent moves that perfectly illustrate each side of that coin. And hey, before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you're into this kind of deep dive NFL analysis, do me a huge favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button for NFL Nexus. Give this explainer a like and get ready to drop your thoughts in the comments, because trust me, we are going to have a lot to talk about today. All right, here's our roadmap for the breakdown. First, we'll really flesh out that core philosophy the Vikings are operating under. Then we're going to look at a perfect example of it in action, locking down their star right tackle Brian O'Neill. After that, we'll flip the script completely and unpack the calculated gamble they're taking with quarterback Kyler Murray. Then we'll get into the salary cap magic that really ties these two different moves together. And finally, we'll look to the future and ask, what's really next for Minnesota? Okay, so let's really dig into this philosophy. It's not just some corporate buzzword. It's a doctrine, a survival guide for the modern NFL. The first part, draft, develop, retain, that's the bedrock. It's like building the foundation of a house. You find young guys in the draft, you coach them up in your system, and then, and this is the absolute key, you pay them to stay. You retain that talent. This creates stability, it creates a culture, and it makes sure your best players aren't lining up against you in January. The second part, supplement in free agency, that's like decorating the house. It's the tactical part. You can't have a max contract at every single position, so you have to be opportunistic. You hunt for bargains, undervalued veterans, or high upside guys on cheap deals. When you do it right, these two strategies work in perfect harmony. So to see this retain our core principle in the wild, there is no better case study than what the Vikings are planning for their star right tackle, Brian O'Neill. I mean, this guy is the walking, talking embodiment of the entire strategy. They drafted him, they developed him into a Pro Bowl caliber player, and now they are making it a top priority to keep him as a cornerstone of this franchise for years to come. But it's not as simple as just cutting a massive check. So what does it really take to get an extension done for a top-tier offensive tackle in today's market? Well, for the Vikings and O'Neill, it's a super complex puzzle. First, you've got his age. He's heading into his age 32 season. Now, for a quarterback, that's prime time. But for an offensive lineman who's in the trenches every single play, it's a factor. Then you have to look at the injury history. He had that partially torn Achilles back in 2022, and for a big guy, that can be a career-altering injury. And yet, despite all that, his performance on the field has been consistently elite, just lights out. So the team has to weigh the risk of age and injury against the absolute certainty of his high-level production. It's a tough balancing act. The reason this whole conversation is happening now starts with this number right here, $23.11 million. That's what Brian O'Neill is scheduled to count against the Vikings salary cap in 2026. A number that big for one player is like an anchor on your budget. It keeps you from signing other guys, from extending your young players, and it just eats up all your flexibility. But the Vikings front office, they don't see this as a problem. They see it as an opportunity. By signing him to an extension now, they can use some salary cap magic to slash that 2026 number and create a ton of financial breathing room. Now here's what's absolutely wild. While his future cap hit is huge, his current average salary ranks him 23rd among all offensive tackles in the league. 23rd. Let that sink in for a second. We're talking about a guy who is, by almost any measure, a top 5 right tackle in the entire NFL. 23rd is it's a joke. The market for his position has absolutely exploded since he signed his last deal. So this number tells you he is massively underpaid for his value, and he is due for a big-time raise that puts him right back where he belongs, among the elite. This number right here tells you an incredible story about his consistency, about his toughness. That 73.4 grade from Pro Football Focus, that is the absolute floor of his performance over the last 5 seasons. It's the lowest grade he's gotten. Think about that. For 5 straight years, including this season, he was coming back from that devastating Achilles injury. His play has never dropped below that really high-quality mark. He's allowed more than 30 pressures just once in that entire time. In a league as violent and chaotic as the NFL, that kind of week-in, week-out reliability from a cornerstone position, you just can't put a price on it. It's elite. Okay, so to figure out what O'Neal is actually worth, you got to look at the neighborhood he lives in. This chart lays out the financial goalposts perfectly. On the low end, you got a guy like Titus Howard for the Texans. Solid player, got a deal averaging about $22.5 million a year. But pretty much everyone agrees O'Neal is a better, more consistent player. Then, at the very top of the mountain, you have the future Hall of Famer Lane Johnson of the Eagles, making $25 million a year. So logically, O'Neal's value has to land somewhere in between those two. He's better than Howard's floor, but maybe not quite at Johnson's legendary ceiling. And that's how you land at a fair market value of right around $24 million per year. Okay, buckle up because this table is where the front office wizards really earn their paychecks. Let's break this thing down, because the structure is the whole ballgame. The total deal is a 3-year, $72 million extension. That's the $24 million a year we just talked about. But look at that first year, 2026. His base salary, his actual paycheck, plummets to just $1.3 million. The team gives him a big signing bonus, but for cap purposes, they get to spread that money out over the life of the contract, including a void year at the end. That's the prorated bonus number you see there. So what's the result? His cap number for 2026, the number that actually counts against their budget, drops from over $23 million all the way down to about $8 million. That one move just created over $15 million in instant cap space. That's huge. Now look at the later years. Yeah, the numbers jump up to $19 million, then $31 million. That's on purpose. The Vikings are betting that the NFL salary cap is going to keep climbing, making those big numbers feel a lot smaller in a few years. And that last line, 2030, the void year, he's not actually on the team that year. It's just a clever accounting trick that lets them spread out the bonus money over 5 years instead of 4. It's genius. The player gets paid, and the team gets a ton of flexibility right now. All right, let's hit the brakes and do a complete 180. We just spent all this time talking about a huge, expensive, long-term investment to retain the core. So what about the other half of the philosophy? Supplement in free agency. Well, this is where we see the total opposite approach, and it comes in the form of signing Kyler Murray. This isn't some 9-figure commitment. This is the dictionary definition of a low-risk, high-upside, opportunistic flyer on a guy with world-class talent. And that immediately brings us to the most obvious question you could possibly ask. How is this even possible? I mean, why in the world would a player like Kyler Murray, a Heisman winner, a #1 overall pick, a guy who signed a $230 million contract not that long ago, why would he sign for the bare minimum? It makes no sense on the surface, but the answer is buried in a fascinating little quirk of the NFL's contract rules. The secret sauce here is a concept called double dipping. It's actually pretty simple. When a player's old team cuts him, but they still owe him guaranteed money, they are on the hook for every single penny of that money. He's getting that massive check no matter what. So that player can then go sign with a new team for the veteran minimum salary, and he gets to collect both paychecks. He gets the millions from his old team, plus the new salary from his new team. It's literally getting paid twice. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Listen to a guy who knows a thing or two about NFL contracts, Von Miller. He's not shy about it. There's no rule against double dipping. He lays it out perfectly. If you're already guaranteed $36 million, who cares what the new deal is? From the player's side of things, it's an absolute no-brainer. You're getting paid anyway, so why not go to a new city, earn a little extra cash, and most importantly, get a chance to prove everyone wrong and revitalize your career? It's just smart business. So what creates the perfect storm for a guy like Murray to even be in this spot? It's really 2 things. First, the obvious one. His old team cut him while still owing him a boatload of guaranteed money. But the second piece is his on-field performance. The NFL is a what-have-you-done-for-me-lately league, and over the last 2 seasons, Murray's production opened this door. He had a losing record as a starter and a pretty high interception rate. That recent performance completely chilled his market. No team was going to give up draft picks or a huge new contract for that level of play, which made him the absolute perfect target for a team like the Vikings to swoop in with a low-risk, double-dipping deal. But, and this is a huge but, the potential upside here is off the charts. That's the whole point of the gamble. Von Miller, who's played against him, thinks Murray has the pure talent to win that starting job easily. He uses the word dynamic, and that is the perfect word. A healthy and motivated Kyler Murray brings things to the table that defenses just hate. He can turn a sack into a 20-yard scramble. He's got the arm to throw it a mile. He completely changes the complexion of the offense. For the Vikings, this is the ultimate lottery ticket. They get a player with truly elite physical tools for pennies on the dollar, and if it doesn't work out, no harm, no foul. No long-term commitment. It is the definition of a low-risk, high-reward move. Okay, so now let's pull the camera back and put it all together. We've looked at these two moves that seem totally opposite, right? A huge, expensive, long-term deal for a guy you drafted, and a dirt-cheap, one-year flyer on an outsider. But when you look at them through the lens of that core philosophy, you realize they aren't opposite at all. They are two perfectly balanced sides of the very same coin. And this slide right here connects all the dots. On the left, you have Brian O'Neill. He's the retain our core strategy. This is a foundational investment in stability. You're paying top dollar for a sure thing, a known commodity. It's expensive, it comes with high guarantees. On the right, you have Kyler Murray. He's the supplement in free agency strategy. This is an opportunistic value play. The goal isn't stability. It's explosive, game-changing upside with almost zero financial risk. Now here's the brilliant part. The moves enable each other. The incredible bargain you get on the Murray deal helps you afford the massive contract for O'Neill. And the rock-solid stability you get from having a guy like O'Neill anchoring your line, that gives you the freedom to take a shot on a high-upside wildcard like Murray. It is a beautiful, cohesive, and incredibly smart approach to building a football team. So, what's the end game here for the Minnesota Vikings? Well, by pulling off this smart two-pronged attack, they're laying a seriously powerful foundation for the future. They are locking their cornerstone guys into place for the long haul, while at the same time they're staying nimble enough to hunt for those high-value, low-cost bargains on the open market. This isn't some short-sighted, all-in for one-year plan. It's a blueprint for building a flexible, talented, and financially sound roster that can compete year after year. And real quick, if you're enjoying this kind of deep dive analysis, a fantastic way to support the channel is by checking out our NFL Nexus coloring books. They're perfect for kids, grandkids, and hey, even adults. You can find them using the link in the description. Your support is seriously what lets us keep making these detailed explainers, and we appreciate it more than you know. So to wrap it all up, let's just run through the Vikings blueprint one last time. Step 1. Invest heavily in your core homegrown talent, the Brian O'Neills of the world. Step 2. Use smart, creative contract structures with things like void years to create immediate cap space. Step 3, constantly be on the lookout for market inefficiencies, like the double dipping rule, to find insane value. And step 4, combine all of it to build a perfectly balanced roster that has both long-term stability and high upside, game-changing potential. And that brings us to our final big picture question, and I really want to leave you with this. What we've seen from the Vikings, this disciplined, two-pronged strategy of locking down your own guys while taking calculated, low-risk shots on outside talent. Is this the new blueprint? Is this the smartest way to build a sustainable winner in the modern, salary cap-driven NFL? I want to know what you think. Drop your opinion down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this breakdown on NFL Nexus.